Hey guys, it's Chandler, and welcome to the Healing Heroes.
I promise you.
I'm Chandler Stroud, an executive, wife, and busy mom of two, who after years of living with anxiety, health struggles, and an unshakable feeling like I should be happier, made a profound discovery that changed everything. Join me on a journey where unexpected paths lead to healing and more happiness. On this show, we'll explore unconventional ways to unlock more joy in your own life with the help of my very own healers and trusted advisors, the Healing Heroes. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Chandler, and I am so excited to be here with you all today for our special series, the Hero Highlight Series, where we are launching a new episode every week that is a curated collection of our favorite moments from each hero week to week. Today's episode features our hero, Karen Remele, our myofascial release therapist. And for those that are unfamiliar with fascia, you can think of it as a connective tissue, a web that surrounds all of your bones, your muscles, your organs, holding everything in place structurally and enabling the mobility of your body. And so myofascial release is a practice that basically helps massage that fascia and release tension and pain so that you do get increased mobility in those areas. And I think one thing that I talk about a lot with Karen is this isn't just physical injury that myofascial release can address. It is also emotional wounding. I know I talk a lot about this on the show, but yes, you absolutely store your past experiences, your emotions, and your traumas in physical tissue, specifically your fascia. And so myofascial release is a very powerful and effective modality that allows you to really work through those pain points and those woundings in partnership with your therapist. In my case, Hero Karen. She has been an invaluable mentor and supporter of mine throughout my healing journey. And I love the analogy she uses for this work. She often talks about myofascial release being similar to knitting a sweater, where if you're knitting a sweater and you pull a thread in one area, maybe in the shoulder, you see it bunch up really far away from that spot. And I think that's exactly what myofascial release is. I could have pain in my left hip, and by working on my right shoulder, somehow that releases because everything is interconnected within your body. And it is such an intuitive practice. It's been so beneficial for me to start releasing that tension that I had been holding on to for so long in my physical tissue. And I first met Karen and sought her guidance coming out of therapy with my other hero, my psychotherapist, Jen Baumgold. We had been embarking in talk therapy and EMDR, which we'll get to at a later episode, but EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a type of that I had been engaging in for many months. And I remember sitting on Jen's couch and looking at her and saying, I feel like I've made so much progress mentally. Like we've been talking through a lot of these incidents and experiences, and I feel like I am so far ahead of where I was when I started this work. However, my body doesn't feel like it's keeping up with these mental leaps that I'm making. I feel physically still triggered by my anxiety or tense when I think someone's mad at me, or a number of other circumstances that just made me tense up, where I'd find my shoulders by my ears, or my palms would maybe sweat a little bit, or my heart would race. Even though mentally I understood what was happening and I knew how to calm myself down, I was ready for my body to find the kind of peace that I was starting to unearth in my mind. So I am thrilled to introduce our myofascial released therapist and hero, Karen Remele. Since we always have new listeners tuning in, Karen, can you briefly explain what our fascia is and then share a little bit more about myofascial release and why it's so beneficial?
Sure.
Fascia is what I call, it organizes our interior architecture. It's a three-dimensional, tough connective tissue making up of collagen, elastin, and fibrous network that runs throughout our body from our head to our toes in one continuous sheet. But it's also this beautiful, fluid-filled ground substance of a crystal matrix that just helps everything keep sliding and gliding on each other, keeps our organs in place. It's all integrated into our muscle and all of our tissues, and it just helps all of our cells in our bodies communicate with one another. As far as the work of myofascial release, it's just focusing on fascia. It helps every system in your body, no matter what you come in for. Working with the fascial system is just different than anything else. There's time components to what we do. There's different pressures. There's a serious energy exchange, which we'll talk more about as we talk about nature as well, because nature's all energy and so are we. So it's a beautiful thing to combine the two in this conversation.
I love that, Karen. Thank you. That was really well articulated. And one analogy that I love that you always give to help listeners just really visualize the practice of MFR is the saran wrap and the sweater, I think, are both excellent. Can you share that just briefly to really bring it to life for everyone?
Yes, for sure. If you don't understand the science behind it, there is just a very simple visual of taking a sweater that's been knitted. And if you are to pull one of those threads, you're going to see how it's woven throughout that whole sweater. It's all one piece. But when you pull it down by the waistline, you might get a line of pull that comes all the way up to the neckline. And that's kind of how fascial restrictions are. You can have an injury in one point in your body, and then it's just going to flood through your system wherever you have maybe a weakened area. It's just going to kind of tighten down. And over time, it actually becomes restrictive to your movement. It can affect joints, health in other ways, your lymph system, your cardiac system, your heart, everything. So that's one visual. The other visual is if you took a piece of saran wrap and tightly put it around the top of a bowl and you gently press your finger into the top of it, you're going to see that line of pull web out to the edges. And then when you release your finger, there is still a divot in that saran wrap, but now there's all creases distant from where your finger was. So that's another way that you can see how fascia may work.
How do you think MFR is a unique solution for women experiencing menopausal symptoms versus other treatment options that they might consider?
Okay, this is a great question, because when you come in for a myofascial release treatment, either with me or another therapist anywhere across the country, we are trained to look at your whole body, your whole person. So that's including physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, everything, family unit. You're treated individually. And that in itself, oftentimes with women more so than men, it's a sense of taking your power back, because now you're here, you're taking the time, you're going to, put yourself in this situation so you can get better. And you open yourself up to really exposing yourself for healing is the best way I can put it. So we're not just going to touch the part that hurts. We're going to have some dialogue. We're going to maybe be quiet the whole time. But the point is that every part of you is going to benefit from what we do. And that goes back to all the emotional things that can come up. We talk about those things. We go through those things. There's no stone left unturned in some of my sessions. And it's a safe place for people to come to heal, because healing is more than one system. Everything is integrated. And through myofascial release and the way we are trained, that's what we're here to do, is to help all of your systems work in harmony. The person who is placing their hands on you, there is an energetic connection that's undeniable, that really makes a difference than sitting across from a table, sitting on telehealth, or sitting across the room from each other. when you have physical contact with a person, it just opens different doors. It's a way in, getting into those places that have been injured or hurt or just out of place. Structural work is obviously part of what we're doing, but the soft tissue is what's helping the structure change. We're not going in there and moving the bones on purpose so that everything around it has to adjust. It's going in and working with the soft parts of you, the tissue, the muscles, the organs. And when they open up, the bones will go back where they need to go. There's also a mindset, the things that, like we're talking about, that things we're holding on in our head. Sometimes belief systems will prevent us from getting well until someone is taking the time to help you realize that what might be stuck here is coming from something that keeps playing in your head. Some old tape recording of you're not good enough, you're whatever the voice is saying to you. There's so many ways to take this context and work with it with the physical body. So MFR differs from massage therapy in general because the effects last longer because we're affecting the ground substance in the fluid of the fascial system. So it's really important to look at the big picture because myofascial release not only affects you physically, but it affects you emotionally. It affects you mentally. It affects you spiritually. It's a whole body approach. All those parts are integrated and you can't pull them away from one another. So I think that's one of the biggest differences and advantages that we have as MFR therapists. A lot of times we don't realize when an incident has occurred, there is emotion that gets trapped inside. When we're training people, we teach them, don't rush in. If someone starts to have an emotion on the treatment table, don't rush in with a tissue. Don't rush in and coddle because their body needs to express that. That emotion needs to come out of the tissue, come out of the body. Otherwise, we just, at a low level, keep living in that trauma. And I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, but I've had talk therapy for 30 years and nothing has helped like this. Sometimes it's a matter of touching the person in the right place with either the right dialogue or no dialogue at all and complete silence in the treatment room, and things will come up. And I tell people when they first come in, you may experience great emotion when you leave. You may not feel anything. You might feel angry. Things may come up that you don't understand. Let them come up. Let it process out because now we've hit upon something that's been stored in your tissues from whatever the traumatic event, or it might not have felt so traumatic at the time. But if you were injured after being in a big argument with someone you really care about, that stuff stays in there and it'll have a way of coming back. And you may not understand why. So there's a lot of links to so many other areas of what we live with every day.
I'm so glad you said that. It reminds me of something else I had said to my therapist, which was, I think, a key impetus in reaching out to you was that I felt like, I turned to her after a session and I said, Jen, I feel like I'm making so much progress with the EMDR and the therapy we've been doing, talking, right? In my mind, I've made so much progress, leaps and bounds, but I still feel like my body is not recovered. I still felt like something was trapped in there. And, she understood, but I don't even think Jen at the time knew to refer me to you, right? It was through another mechanism pushed me to look you up and come see you. But I really felt that. I really felt like you can make progress mentally, but your body is still very much stuck in the past.
Yes. And sometimes it's our belief systems that help us hold those things in place. And oftentimes they're belief systems that no longer serve us. But because it's all we know, we stay with it because we think that's what's going to help us. But in the long run, those things have to be uncovered. And then it's your own decision whether you want to take them back or not. So it's very interesting. And depending on what your trauma is, it can get very deep and very interesting as well, I can say, without giving any specific examples. It's just every person has their own journey. Every person has their own way of expressing things. Just because culturally, the way what we believe and how we grow up, you have to, in my position as an MFR therapist, be very open and understanding of what other people's ways are so that you don't shut them down from getting to the place they need to get to when they are going through their process. Because it is a process. Healing is a process. A lot of times I find that people actually have a fear when they've held on to a certain way of being in pain, chronic, their belief systems are wrapped around a certain thing. There's fear that comes up. What's going to happen to me? How am I going to be if I don't have this pain? Like, I don't know how to live without this pain. Who am I going to become? And it's my job to help get you to that place of understanding that you're going to be okay, and to watch people unfold from these situations, watching a person become more authentic to who they are versus what they think society feels they should be or how they should act or the doctor said. All of those things start to dissipate. And they just realize, wow, I don't have to be afraid of who I am under this pain. I can start to discover who I am because now I'm not living in chronic pain, and it's going to give me an opportunity to learn who I am, not having to deal with this.
I too have really felt the impact of the treatment. I can vouch that absolutely started to change as soon as I started working with you. I really felt like I started to relax. I felt like I was able to release tension in places I didn't know that I was tense. And I think the most impactful thing was we had been working together a couple months, I believe, and it was right before the holidays. And I came home after one of our sessions and no one was in the house. And I started making lunch and put on music, and emotion just poured from me. I mean, tears and sorrow and fear, and it all came out. And if you'd stumbled upon me that day, you would have been like, she's lost her mind. But I felt so in touch and connected with myself in that moment, and the crying and the outpouring of that emotion that had been inside me for that long was such a release. And I felt like reborn on the other side of that. It was so powerful. And, you know, I always say, I know I'm not done yet, but really thank you for that experience and how much that has helped.
Yeah. And this is what it is about. It's healing mind, body, spirit. It's because you can't separate them. And I'm so grateful. I know how important that moment was for you, and just allowing ourselves and giving ourselves that permission is really important. And I think a lot of times we have to, or we feel, again, back to belief systems, or society has kind of put these little phrases into our head that we have to be strong, we have to push through. And I think we become good at those things at a cost. And learning to let go of those things and knowing that being soft and being patient can be more impactful than pushing through and being hard about something. Which brings me back to the way this works is sometimes I have to start with my hands off of a person's body and then gently sink in, because they are just still so on hyperdrive internally that they can't even tolerate the pressure of someone's touch on their skin. Myofascial release treats any diagnosis that's given to a person. It doesn't matter what you walk through my door with your paper saying, I'm going to treat your whole body, because that's how this works. Low back pain could mean 10 different things. And every person is going to respond differently to what I do, because every person is going to get treated individually, because it's not always the same.
What about the woman who just feels exhausted all the time and incredibly stressed out and tense in her own body? Do you think myofascial release could be a good solve for that sort of distress or condition?
Yes, absolutely. Because there's somewhere in your system that there are restrictions which are taking your energy from you. Depression sometimes can be helped just by working through different parts, literally of the back of your head, different parts of your body, increasing sleep. It affects all systems, respiratory, lymph. So when you start getting the work done, everything starts to shift. So you feel better in general, and then you want to keep feeling better. So then you start to walk a little more, whereas you didn't have the energy to, or you start getting back to an activity that you were really enjoying. There's so many people who are under so much stress now, and this work can help with just that, just coming in because you're stressed. And then there's this, a process during the evaluation that will figure out, okay, where is this coming from?
Even if you're not having a fertility issue or some other form of physical ailment that's specific to the female body, we carry a lot in our fascia, is what I've learned from you. And I think even if you haven't experienced that trauma, whether physical or emotional, and you just feel exhausted at the end of every day, you maybe have a difficult time accessing meditation, for example, or yoga, or dropping back into your body. I think similar to acupuncture and some of those other practices, myofascial release can be really effective for that, because you are starting to open up blockages and restricted areas in the body that maybe you didn't know were there.
Most people will have a place in their body they hold their stress, whether it be shoulders, stomach, low back. There's a place. Headaches. It will eventually become a physicality. Your mind can make you feel sick, and your mind can make you feel well.
So true, Karen.
Yeah, it's a big part of myofascial release, and why I love this work, because of the health that it restored me to, when all I was being offered was pills after pills after pills. And I would just look at these prescriptions and throw them away when I got home, knowing in my heart that I know that's not what's going to help me. There's something else out there. And I stuck with it long enough to find the right provider who said, "Oh, you have cervical myofascial pain syndrome." And I was like, "Oh, 3 years into this, you have a name for me."
Yeah.
They know what it's called. Because I actually had a professional say to me, "You need to see a psychiatrist." And I went, "Because you can't figure out what's going on?" Wow, that's like a cop-out to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm so glad that I had whatever it is in me, that voice that screamed, "No, that's not the answer." Just like when I was diagnosed with a hyperthyroid, and a year into being incorrectly medicated by a physician, he said, "Well, we'll just radioactively burn it out." And I was like, "I don't think so." And I'm walking to the car, and I literally heard this voice in my head saying, "Don't do that. No, that's not what you should be doing." And I sought out another professional, and then I sought out holistic people.
Well, I think it's a really important lesson in the power of listening to your intuition and that inner knowing, and where it can take you. And obviously, nobody's is the same, but there is a lot of power that comes with being able to hear that deepest part of yourself again.
Yes, and that's where coming into nature and being in nature can help you hear those little things that are happening. Your body knows, your brain can express it so that you will understand it and get it if you listen to yourself. Give yourself the credit that's due for being an intelligent being.
Yeah.
We all have it. Everyone has it.
Soul intelligence, not mind intelligence.
Yes.
Different.
Yes.
Both important. We're not knocking one or the other. Both important.
That's correct. Therefore, into the woods I go to lose my mind and find my soul. Because there's an impact that nature has that just keeps giving.
Yeah.
And, our earth has been taking so many hits from us, and she'll keep finding a way to heal herself. And if it means knocking us off, she will.
Okay. On that note, great episode. Thanks for this, Karen. This has been very uplifting. Kidding.
I know. But I'm just saying she'll take care of herself. And I think we need to be more like the earth, because she gives us everything we need to thrive. And people just need to respect that and give back to her. There's another saying that I love: never take more than you need, and always give back more than you take.
But I think a lot of people hear trauma and they think, oh, well, what I experienced wasn't really trauma, or it's not as serious as somebody else's trauma. But just a reminder, yes, there are physical traumas that happen to your body, but the emotional trauma can be oftentimes something seemingly innocuous. It's not what happens to you. It's how your body interprets what happens to you.
Correct.
And that can be, dealing with a very distressing emotional circumstance, like, again, loss, grief, abuse, abandonment, all of those things. But you can also experience trauma from things that you didn't get and needed as a young child. Right. One of the reasons we talk about reconnecting with yourself and dropping back into your body is to go back and examine if there are stored emotions or micro traumas or macro traumas that you maybe thought you had processed, gotten away from, weren't impacting you. And I encourage you to go back and revisit, because if there's something there, I guarantee it's still holding you back from achieving the levels of happiness, good health, and just general wonder that you want in your life day to day.
Yes. And I find that across the board, men or women, children of any age, someone could have just made a comment to you about how you look, a body part, your nose, whatever it may be. And whatever else you might be going through at the time, it just stings. And then you blow it off. But then somehow you're always walking around or looking in the mirror or trying to fix that part, or, you're now uncomfortable with yourself. Your self-confidence starts to change. So you're right. There's many ways that we can become affected by how our body feels. And as far as like women's health goes, it's amazing to me when we are in seminar and the therapists work on each other, because we need to know how to experience what we are now going to be performing on a person. And there's no better way to be able to absorb that and be able to share that than experiencing it yourself. And it's amazing to me that when it comes to the female body, having been 25 years now of doing this work, when it comes to breast tissue, and we start to work on and talk about the breast tissue, there are so many women who are just so traumatized by the look of their breasts, because of whether society has given us this picture of the Barbie doll or whatever got set in your mind. A sibling could have teased you for having a flat chest, or whatever the circumstance might have been. It sticks. And then again, we walk around either covering ourselves up, we're embarrassed, or some people, it's the opposite. They go another direction and they're like just showing everything they can because they're going to prove that to be wrong. So we carry these emotional baggages with us about our body from little examples and things we hear, messages through TV or on the playground or wherever it may be, in a workplace or just even out having fun with a group of friends. Sometimes those things that we think we're teasing about are really hitting a sore spot with someone. And it's interesting to me to see that that particular part of a woman's body brings up so much emotion. Just in general, in our society, we've become so used to go to the doctor, do what the doctor says, don't question the doctor, take the medicine. It's a process that we give our power away when we don't ask questions, when we aren't curious about, well, why would I have to take that medicine if I can do this instead? I mean, it is. It's just helping people come to that realization that you have more healing ability inside of you than you're giving yourself credit for. We all have the potential. People have healed cancers in themselves. I have helped people to get through those situations that were just big mountains, and they had the willingness and the openness to receiving whatever it took to get to where their endpoint was. We all need encouragement for that. We all need, someone to help bring that awareness to our own being.
That's what we're doing here, Karen. That is what we are doing on this show, guys. We are here to help bring awareness.
Yes, but you're bringing awareness to your own self that this is your journey. Don't give it to anyone else. Yeah. Don't let them say, no, you can't do that, or, oh, what's that about? You don't need those types of energies in your life. You don't need those types of messages coming to you, because you can do amazing things when you are all in to change.
You guys heard it from Karen here first. You guys could do hard things especially when you set your mind to it. So I think that's the perfect note to end on. There's so much more we could talk about. So very possible we come back and do a part 2 on this, since I have so many questions that I didn't get to ask, but we are at time. And I'm so grateful for you, Karen, and the work you continue to do. And also just for being here today and sharing your wisdom and experiences with all of our listeners. I know I certainly appreciate it. And I'm sure so many women listening also appreciate knowing you and hearing more from you and your experiences. So thank you for being with us today, Karen. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's always my pleasure to help anyone seeking how to manage their healing journey. It's a blessing to me to do this work, and I appreciate you and your efforts to put all of this out there.